Epic medieval battles, the shocking truth about 3 insane 1v1 fights you've never heard of. A blood-soaked legend looms over the medieval battlegrounds, where men became gods with swords in hand and shields raised high. Under the cloak of night, whispers echo tales of 3 legendary duels so brutal they shook the very foundation of kingdoms. Imagine knights, their armor glinting under a pale moon, locking eyes with rivals in a dance of death. Even the bravest knights quaked at the thought of facing their foes. What fury awaited them? What buried secrets lingered in their hearts? In a forgotten corner of England, tales of Sir Reginald Eagleton and his nemesis, Sir Bertrand the Bold, fell like thunder. These were not just ordinary knights, they were titans. Reginald, with his lion-hearted courage, sliced through enemies like butter. Bertrand, with his fiery resolve, invited fear into every soul he crossed. Their one-on-one showdown was more than a fight, it was a cataclysm of will. The villagers watched, breathless, as metal clashed with metal and the air filled with the acrid scent of sweat and blood. Each blow cracked the silence of the present. Each missed strike echoed their fears, causing hearts to skip, and then there was Lady Mortimer, who in a shocking twist dared to challenge her rival, the valiant Sir Harrington. She grabbed her sword, yes, a lady with a sword. And a murmur rippled through the crowd. Women were not meant for battles, yet here she stood, eyes fixed, hands trembling yet resolute. What fueled her fire? Love? Revenge? The answer danced just beyond reach, teasing the mind of everyone present. But perhaps the most bizarre of all was the tale of the ghostly duelists of Melrose Abbey. During a stormy night, echoed screams erupted from the ancient stones, where 2 spectral warriors clashed, their glowing swords illuminating the dark, damp air. A duel between life and death, their motivations obscured in the shrouds of history. Were they searching for redemption? Revenge? The villagers who dared to watch were never the same again. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the echoes of swords clashing faded, yet the shadows lingered, weaving tales of honor and betrayal. What secrets lay buried in those fields? Who would rise in glory, and who would be whispered about for an eternity? The answers awaited, tantalizingly close but barely out of reach. Each warrior held a piece of the mystery, and the next chapter promised revelations that would shake the very ground they stood upon. What if they were connected in ways nobody could imagine? The battlefield was not just a place of glory, it was a crossroads of destiny, a truth yet to be uncovered. As darkness fully enveloped the land, the tension in the air thickened, heavy with the weight of unspoken destinies. Sir Reginald and Sir Bertrand circled each other like caged lions, their breaths visible in the cold night as they weighed their next moves. Every glimmer from their blades reflected glimpses of their past, battles fought, and enemies slain, but it also revealed the shifting loyalties of the crowd assembled. Whispers flared like wildfire through the villagers. What if Reginald falls? What if a woman beats a knight? Lady Mortimer's challenge rippled through the hearts of men, igniting both dread and awe. It was a rebellion against the norms, a defiance that tantalized and terrified. Even the bravest knights couldn't help but steal glances at her, caught between admiration and fear. In the haunting gloom of Melrose Abbey, the air was thick with unease. The ghostly duelists clashed with otherworldly fury, their glowing swords illuminating the cold stone. Spectators shivered, not just from the chill but from an overwhelming sense of dread. I swear I heard them call out for vengeance, gasped a woman, her eyes wide, reflecting the horror around her. She clutched her child tightly, shielding him from the spectral chaos. The battle between the duelists was not merely about skill but a war for redemption, a battle against the chains of their past. Then came the storm, a thunderous roar that seemed to echo the heartbeat of the earth itself. Rain began to pelt the ground, washing away the remnants of blood and fear. Even so, it couldn't cleanse the souls tormented within the abbey. Would their fury be unleashed upon the unsuspecting village if they didn't find resolution? Just as Sir Reginald swung his blade, aiming for Bertrand's shoulder, a brilliant flash of lightning illuminated the battlefield. That brief light caught the furrow of determination etched on Reginald's face, and lit up the fear lurking in Bertrand's eyes. The villagers gasped collectively as Reginald's sword met Bertrand's with a resounding clang, a meeting not just of steel but of souls wrestling with fate. In that moment, a shrouded figure broke from the shadows, a woman cloaked in darkness, threading through the throngs of villagers. Disbelief washed over the crowd as whispers transformed into gasps. Is it true? The Witch of the West? With powers to bend fate? People backed away, the fear of her presence overwhelming the night. She moved closer to the dueling knights, her voice a low murmur, barely cutting through the thunder. Blood shall unlock the truth, she intoned, casting her penetrating gaze across the warriors. And sacrifice will decide who shall claim victory. All eyes turned to her, an unearthly chill snaking through the crowd. Reginald and Bertrand paused mid-fight, poised in anticipation, each moment stretching like an eternity. What ritual was this? What fate lay ahead for them and for Lady Mortimer? In that moment of silence, hearts raced. The foundations of kingdoms trembled as destinies intertwined. What choices would they make? Would they face retribution, or would they uncover a power far greater than their swords could wield? The night wore on, the air thick with possibility, leaving the villagers on the edge of despair and excitement. What truth lay behind the witch's words? And what unimaginable battles were they yet to witness? The storm raged overhead, sheets of rain whipping around the cloaked woman as if nature itself groaned in response to her ominous presence. Sensing the shift in the air, villagers instinctively drew closer together, eyes darting nervously between the dueling knights and the striking figure that had fallen from the shadows. Who dares to invoke the skies? Sir Reginald bellowed, his voice sharpened by the intensity of the moment. His sword trembled slightly in his grip, but pride kept him anchored. He wouldn't show fear to this spectre, not now. The witch flicked her wrist, silencing the storm momentarily. Speak not of fear, brave knight, she replied, her voice a serpentine whisper. It is the truth that terrorizes. You both are trapped by your own destinies, bound to the choices of those before you. Bertrand, catching his breath, dared to question, what do you mean? Speak plainly. Your past is stained with blood. Each of you carries the weight of sins you have yet to atone, she spoke, her eyes sweeping over the assembled crowd, who stood frozen in awe and terror. Only in blood can the truth be revealed. As she uttered those final words, a spark flickered behind Reginald's eyes, the ground trembled, shifting underfoot as if the earth acknowledged her proclamation. Enough of this madness! Reginald shouted, the flicker of doubt flashing away as anger seized him. He lunged forward, steel glimmering dangerously in the shadows. We will not be swayed by your tricks. With a roar that rivaled the crack of thunder, they clashed again. Each blow sent shockwaves through the onlookers, their hearts pounding in sync with the rhythm of steel meeting steel. Surrounding the spectacle, villagers exchanged panicked glances. Would this fight end with an undeniable victor, or was there something more brutal lurking beneath the surface? In a corner of the crowd, Lady Mortimer stepped forward, her resolve like iron. Stand down, Reginald. This isn't just about pride. There is more at stake. Her voice rang clear, cutting through the chaos. Even the storm seemed to momentarily hush to give her words room to breathe. The witch's eyes narrowed, intrigued by her defiance. Brave and foolish, she murmured, as the air around her crackled. What sacrifices are you willing to make, Lady Mortimer? Will the truth claim you too? Without hesitation, Lady Mortimer took a step toward the combatants, determination written across her face. "I challenge both of you. Let me show you the power of unity over pride." A stirring erupted within the crowd as murmurs rose like waves. "Unity?" Bertrand scoffed, but even he faltered, glancing at Reginald, who seemed caught off guard by her boldness. "Is our fate truly dictated by the past?" She pressed on, her voice growing more passionate. "Or do we forge our own destinies?" Caught in a spiraling reflection, the knights hesitated, their blades wavering mid-air. Land on the brink of some unknown reckoning, they shared a fleeting glance, a silent understanding flickering between them and the possibility of something different, but just then, the sky split open with another bolt of lightning, illuminating the witch's face, twisted with a fierce joy. "The moment for resolution draws near. With blood, you unleash the true force of your legacy. But what will you choose?" The villagers gasped collectively as the air thickened with tension. An unbreakable choice loomed ahead, with fate pulling each warrior triangle where they stood. The choices hung, heavy like the returning storm clouds. Would they fight together or against one another? Would Lady Mortimer's plea spark change, or was it too late? With the storm gathering force, the witch's laughter echoed eerily through the night. What would be unleashed next? The answer lay only a heartbeat away, teetering on the edge of their newfound alliance or an ancient curse long forgotten. The air crackled and shimmered, charged with an energy that thrummed against each beating heart in the crowd. A fierce wind kicked up, swirling debris around Lady Mortimer, enveloping her in a chaotic dance of leaves and thunder. "Listen!" she shouted, her voice soaring above the gale. "We are not bound to our pasts. Together, we can step into the light." For a moment, her clarity shone like a beacon. Reginald's sword lowered just a fraction, uncertainty creeping into his stance. Bertrand, who had been ready to wrestle his enemy to the ground, turned toward Mortimer with something resembling curiosity. "And what if we do not wish to unify?" Bertrand spat, stepping further into the fray. "What if my path dictates I stand against you both?" But doubt hovered in his voice, echoing louder than his defiance, an internal struggle laid bare. "Then you choose chaos," Mortimer countered, the storm howling her agreement. "You risk losing everything: our honor, our home, our very souls." The witch's laughter rose like a shroud around them. "Such beautiful folly. This is the moment the world changes. Blood must spill to cleanse the sins of old. Choose wisely, knights, for the choices bind you as chains." Another collision of swords rang out as Reginald, driven by simmering anger, surged forward once more. The clash was vicious, a symphony of steel that echoed like a heartbeat, the heartbeat of a town hanging in the balance. They fought with a fierce resolve, yet each blow changed under the weight of Mortimer's words. The lines drawn in the mud began to blur. Each knight knew the youth of their shared history, the betrayals and victories, victory forged in the fires of their youthful pride. One misstep now could tip the entire scale, but, as the rain began to pour anew, the storm gnawing at the edges of their sanity, Mortimer's voice sliced through the din again. "Face me, directly. Let light break us apart, or bind us together." She stood unwavering, a figure fiercely resolute against the chaos. Reginald's heart raced in his chest. Could her boldness spark his dormant courage? Was he willing to look past his pride? For the first time, doubt drifted through his anger. Was it pride that held him here, or the realization that their destinies intertwined like roots from the same tree? "Reginald! Bertrand! Stop!" Mortimer's voice rang out desperately, each word a lifeline thrown amid the tempest. "What if the past doesn't have to dictate our future? What if truth is stronger than betrayal?" A sudden stillness fell over the field, as if silence demanded their attention. Reginald, panting heavily, flicked his gaze toward Bertrand, who was equally heaving. An invisible rope of shared trepidation held them in a tenuous embrace, but then, the witch rose, her voice sultry and ominous. "Ah, sweet mortals, you stir the sea when the calm is ever closer. An alliance? Or a choice of blood? Her words slithered into the minds of each villager, lingering like an echo cloaked in dread. One will summon shadows, dastardly shadows. Choose now. Illusions or dark absolution? The tension surged again, volatile and electric, a spark waiting to ignite. The crowd squirmed restlessly, whispers igniting like wildfire. Would they embrace Mortimer's vision, or fall prey to the darkness the witch hinted at? As they all waited, uncertain, a cracked silence lingered before Reginald finally lowered his sword. What if? He trailed off, voice weak yet filled with growing ambition. What if they were all more than they believed? Lady Mortimer seized the moment. Together, we can break the chains of the past. Just then, shadows danced at the edge of the clearing, a whisper of uncertainty frolicking right at the boundary of their resolve. The witch's laughter turned sharp, slicing through the air as darkness loomed closer, hungry for souls. Ah, but will the truth stand against such power? A chill crept down everyone's spine, a hesitant yet powerful question hanging heavily. In their moment of unity, could they truly rewrite destiny, or would destiny rewrite them into darkness? All eyes turned toward the night, a unified breath held in fearful anticipation. What awaited them beyond this choice? Would they seize this fragile moment of tentative solidarity, or would they plunge headfirst into an abyss of ancient curses? Rain fell in thick sheets, plastering the cold earth beneath their feet, mirroring the fear that clung to the villagers huddled in the shadow of the conflict. Each drop felt like a judgment, the sky weeping for unrest yet bearing witness to history unraveling before their eyes. Reginald's sword trembled slightly in his grasp, the raw tension coiling tighter in his chest. We must act. He shouted, the tempest outside echoing his frantic energy. The longer we wait, the more power the shadows gain. Bertrand's fierce glare darted from Mortimer to the advancing dark shapes creeping closer to the periphery, taunting, whispering threats that left chills racing down everyone's spines. You think stepping into the light is the answer? He spat, words laced with bitterness. Look at what that light did to us. Lady Mortimer, her feet rooted in defiance, beckoned the knights closer. Will you let despair tell our story, or will you carve out a new one with your own hands? The intensity of her gaze pierced through the chaos, igniting the ember of hope hidden within Reginald's heart. Face your demons, both within and from without. We are stronger than our fears. As if summoned by her words, tendrils of darkness pulled away from the trees, creeping into view like sinister specters. Whispers slithered through the air, teasing their resolve. You cannot trust her, they hissed, echoing through the minds of Reginald and Bertrand. Only blood binds you to this fate. Embrace the darkness, it will sustain you, it will empower you. Enough. Reginald's voice broke, raw and fierce, piercing through the cacophony enveloping them. We fight together, or we fall separately. Mortimer nodded, eager yet cautious. Then let us stand as one. We will unveil the truth hiding behind this chaos. The rain intensified, pounding like a war drum. The villagers, bodies edged with tension, watched their breaths caught, trapped between anticipation and dread. Would they find courage in the uncertainty, or witness the birth of a darkness that could swallow them whole? Just as the darkness closed in, a blinding light burst forth from Lady Mortimer, swirling around her like a shield. Do not fear. Let the truth of our unity shine. Together, we are more than mere shadows. Shimmering sparks danced through the air, illuminating hardened faces with flickers of hope, but it wasn't enough. Shadows surged, hungry for the light. They crested against the brilliance, dark tendrils grasping desperately, seeking any measure of despair that might weaken their resolve. Bertrand gripped his sword tighter and took a staggering step back. What if we fail? The vulnerability in his voice, a stark contrast to the bravado he exhibited moments ago, echoed throughout the clearing. What if the shadows are stronger? Reginald, seizing the moment, stepped forward, half-turned toward his ally. Then we will fall together, and let history remember that we chose to face the light. The villagers gasped, a collective inhale that stilled the chaos momentarily. Would they rally behind such a declaration, or would fear overshadow their courage? Just then, a guttural roar erupted from the depths of the forest, the shadows responding to their uncertainty with a ferocious appetite for battle. The ground shook, reverberating with power both familiar and terrifying. The darkness lunged forward, ready to consume everything in its path. "Stand firm!" Mortimer cried, but as her voice faded into the chaos, Reginald's eyes widened as he felt the ground shift beneath him. Something was rising, something ancient and dreadful. It was as if the shadows themselves had come alive, intent on dragging them back into the abyss. With breaths shallow and hearts pounding, he turned to see the masses of shadowy figures coalescing into a single dark form, looming ominously against the spiraling light. This battle was far from over. The shadows stirred with a malevolent energy, ready to strike. What monstrous truth lay hidden within those depths? As fear rippled through the crowd, one question lingered: was the true enemy the darkness, or the shadows concealed in their hearts? Reginald's heart raced as the towering shadow loomed over them, a dark mass that seemed to drink in the light around it. Every face in the crowd reflected the same horror, a trembling mix of awe and terror. It felt as if the very air was thickening with despair. The figure's eyes, burning like embers, fixed on Lady Mortimer. "You think your light can fend me off?" It boomed, the voice reverberating with a chilling familiarity, one that echoed their own fears and unspoken doubts. Mortimer stood resolute, though her frame trembled slightly beneath the weight of the moment. "We are not alone," she shouted, her voice a beacon amid the gathering storm. "Our strength lies within each other. Together, we can banish this darkness." But as the monster moved closer, the villagers began to falter. Reginald could see the wavering faith in their eyes, each flicker a reminder of their vulnerabilities. He gripped his sword tightly, squeezing until the hilt bit into his palm, grounding him in determination. "Look at the shadows!" he cried, his voice breaking through the tempest. "They feed on fear. They thrive in our doubt. If we let them divide us, they win." A shudder rippled through the crowd, a hesitance born of years spent in the shadows. But he continued, each word igniting a flicker of bravery among the villagers. "Remember the times we have stood together. The nights we faced storms and came out with our heads held high. This is no different. Do not give in to despair." With every shout, the shadows reacted, recoiling slightly as if they sensed the stirring of hope. Mortimer, sensing the shift in energy, stepped forward, her hands cupping the radiant light surrounding her. "Let your hearts unite with this glow. The truth is powerful, the truth is a weapon." As she spoke, the brilliance intensified, flares shooting out like arrows, striking the ground, igniting sparks of defiance. Reginald noticed a few villagers beginning to raise their heads, pushing back against the overwhelming darkness pressing in from all sides. The shadowy beast unleashed another roar, this one born of rage, thrashing against the light as if it could drown it out. Tendrils split off from its body, darting towards the warriors, determined to snuff out their budding courage. Reginald sidestepped, narrowly avoiding a grasp that might have ripped him apart. The shadows twisted, clawing for intimacy, like desperate suitors hungry for despair. "Stand together," he urged again, looking for any flicker of recognition in the villagers' eyes. "Feel the strength of your brothers and sisters beside you. We are warriors forged in love and loyalty. Refuse to bow to the darkness. Break the bond it tries to weave around us." One by one, lanterns of hope flickered to life in the crowd. Bertrand, bolstered by Reginald's words, stepped forward, his sword raised defiantly. "For the village!" he roared, the cry rippling through the crowd like a wave, echoing in the depths of their hearts. Inspired, others followed suit. Voices rose, fear transmuting into fury, the storm outside joining their battle cry. The shadows recoiled once more, their twisted forms faltering against the onslaught of unified spirit. But just as the tides began to turn, the towering beast's form shifted dramatically. With a shattering scream, it split into multiple, smaller entities, each one a haunting echo of the fears buried deep inside the villagers' souls. "What are these?" Reginald gasped as the shadows cascaded around them, each one a magnified version of their own anxieties, ghosts of past failures and regrets. A shrill cry pierced the night. "The shadows know your fears," echoed the menacing voice. "To conquer them, you must face the truth of your hearts." In that moment, realization crept in. If they were to defeat these fears, they needed to confront what lay deep within themselves. Would they find the courage to face their darkest truths? Or would the shadows overwhelm their spirits, dragging them back into an abyss of despair? As the battle raged on, the uncertain answer hung thick in the air, a spark of hope, or a suffocating darkness. Reginald's breath was ragged, panic clawing at the edges of his resolve. All around him, villagers shrank back as the swarm of shadowy figures rippled and twisted, embodying their innermost fears. Each shadow was a torment that awakened buried pain and left the air heavy with doubt. "Remember," he shouted, forcing himself to keep his voice steady. "It's not just the shadows we battle. These are pieces of us, our doubts, our pasts. Face them." Then he saw her, a young girl at the edge of the group, clutching her doll, her bright eyes wide with terror. Reginald felt a piercing pain in his chest. What if this darkness swallowed the innocent? A flicker of courage ignited within him. "You there?" he called, trying to hone in on the light in her eyes. "What's your name?" "Ellie," she stammered, shaking so hard that her doll slipped from her fingers and tumbled to the ground. "Ellie," he repeated, as if calling out to a lifeline. "You are brave. Show everyone how strong you can be. Say it out loud, say, 'I am not afraid.'" The shadows quivered, the very air seeming to hold its breath as she stepped forward, hesitance evident in her young frame. I am not afraid," she whispered, her voice trembling but resolute. Reginald felt the pulse of strength ripple through the crowd. If she could speak out against her fear, then so could they. More villagers began to step forward, voices rising in intensity. "I am not afraid," they shouted, one after another, a chorus breaking through the darkness like dawn piercing the night. The shadows writhed, but now they shuddered, their forms distorting and flickering, as if uncertain of their hold. This was no longer just a fight against a monstrous creature, it was a clash of spirits. The moment Ellie had declared her defiance, it was as if the collective voice of the community infused the light with even greater power. "Together!" Lady Mortimer cried, her arms raised high as she called the villagers to stand once more. "We will not allow our fears to dictate our reality. Acknowledge them, feel them, but don't let them control you." And then Reginald felt his own truth surfacing within him, a memory of failure that had haunted his nights. The time he let his family down. But he would not let that darkness consume him now. "I too will face my fear," he declared, voice strong. "I failed once, but I've learned. I will rise." As if summoned by his words, a crack of light surged forth around him, snapping and sparking with new energy. The shadows trembled and shrieked as flashes of white-hot brilliance flared from each villager, revealing their own fears and the strength they held beneath. Roots of hope spread quickly, grasping at their hearts like vines, intertwining them in a mutual determination. "We are stronger than this," Reginald shouted, the realization blossoming within him. "Every fear faced feeds our strength. Do not let them back down into the dark." Each voice joined the others, a fervent wave surging against the shadows that continued to multiply. But these were no longer mere horrors, they were challenges to overcome, reflections of struggles that once bound them. This time, their realization did not breed despair but rather empowerment, yet, just as their courage ignited a radiant force that surged against the shadows, another roar erupted, a sound so unlike the previous cries of agony. The walls of shadow twisted, and from their core emerged a figure, darker and menacing. It was the embodiment of their collective dread, distorted in form but unmistakably wise to manipulation. What you touch is only the surface, it hissed, voice oily and smooth. Fear can only be conquered when you are willing to unveil the truth you hide from even yourselves. A wave of unease rippled through the crowd, uncertainty scratching at their newfound courage. If this creature was right, what truths still lay veiled in their hearts? As dread tightened its grip, Reginald felt the chill of something familiar creeping back in. They had to confront the truths, their darkest fears, but what if those fears were buried too deep, too powerful to face? With a singular determination, he locked eyes with Lady Mortimer. "Are we ready to dive deeper?" But as the shadows gathered, it was unclear whether the light would guide them or bury them. The shadows roared, a deafening symphony that rattled the courage building amongst the villagers. Reginald's heart thundered in his chest, each beat echoing the uncertainty that seeped into the air. "We have to stand united," he shouted, straining to project strength into the thickening atmosphere. "Remember, when we face our truth, we gather our strength." But it was as if the air itself mocked his words. The figure, darker than the rest, slithered closer. "Strength?" It sneered, its voice curling around each syllable, planting seeds of doubt. "You think this unity will protect you? What of the truths you fear to confront? Are you prepared to meet them? Or will you remain prisoners of your own dishonesty?" Reginald's stomach twisted at the thought. What truths? What hidden fears lay buried beneath the surface, waiting to claw their way back into the light? He looked at Lady Mortimer. Her eyes were wide, filled with a mix of ferocity and fear. "We must open the door, Reginald," she urged, her voice slicing through the confusion. "Only then can we truly fight back." Taking a deep breath, Reginald stepped forward, feeling the raw pulse of energy surrounding him. "We will turn our fears into our armor. We will." Suddenly, the shadows surged forward, sweeping like a tidal wave. The villagers faltered, the collective power of their voices crumbling as doubts infiltrated their minds like poison. "What could we possibly gain?" someone cried. "What if our truth is too dark to confront?" Then Ellie's small voice pierced through the chaos, her resolve unwavering. "I want to be brave," she declared, stepping in front of Reginald, fists clenched defiantly. "I will not run. I want to hide." Reginald felt a jolt of hope. If this little girl could stand against that dark wave, could they not all? "Ellie's right," he exclaimed. "No matter how terrible the truth, it cannot be worse than living in fear of it. We must face it." A murmur of agreement rippled through the villagers, yet dread flooded the corners of Reginald's mind. What truth would he unearth? Would facing his past failures not shatter him more completely? As if sensing his hesitation, the figure coiled closer, its presence suffocating. "You think you can find strength in the truth? What if your truth is a nightmare? What if you left a bloody trail behind? What if?" The looming threat triggered a flood of memories, a time when he had allowed his family to stumble into danger, when his weakness had cost them everything. The guilt surged violently, consuming him as wounds too deep to heal began to resurface. "No!" Reginald shouted, shaking his head furiously. "I divorced myself from that shame long ago. It doesn't define me." The shadows recoiled slightly at his defiance, and with it came a surprising surge of energy. Has it always been this simple? Can simply insisting from the core of his being make it true? Willpower ignited within the crowd, emboldened by their collective stance. "Face the truth," Lady Mortimer called, raising her hands. "Together, we can embrace it without being swallowed. Together, we are stronger." Reginald steadied his breath. "We will no longer stand back in the face of sorrow or regret. We will transform our darkness into luminous energy." But just as the last words slipped from his lips, shadows surged harder, swarming over the villagers like a storm of despair. Women screamed, men shouted, panic rippled through their ranks, and soon shadowy tendrils snaked toward each of them, searching for the cracks in their newfound armor. Reginald's heart raced. Could they really hold firm? Could they truly fight through the rising tide, or was this the moment the darkness would swamp them all? Every eye in the crowd turned towards him, faces now ghostly pale, the weight of expectation heavier than the shadows themselves. Time hung thick in the air. Moments stretched like an unwinding thread. The battle for their souls was beginning, yet so much hung in the balance. "Are you ready?" he whispered to the crowd, feeling the heavy thrum of uncertainty beneath their collective voice. But as the shadows lunged forward, threatening to engulf him whole, Reginald forced his fists to tighten in resolve. "The truth may haunt us, but we will rise. We will face it." And then silence fell, an eerie hush that swallowed even the shadows, leaving behind a question that echoed ominously through the gathering. What truth would they be forced to confront next? The stillness cracked, splintering the air as Ricardo, one of the elder villagers, stepped hesitantly forward, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. What if the truth is that we are the architects of our own suffering?" His voice trembled, reverberating like a fragile bell echoing in a vast, empty chamber. Heavy gasps echoed in response. Faces contorted in confusion and fear. Reginald sensed an unseen barrier growing thicker between hope and despair, and that they were teetering dangerously on the edge. Lady Mortimer began but was interrupted as the shadows lunged once more, driving tendrils in every direction. Panic erupted. Bodies shifted, cries of distress escalating into a cacophony of terror. Reginald reached out for Ellie, but she had already darted into the thrumming darkness, a tiny figure swallowed whole by despair. "Ellie!" he shouted, the sound tearing from his throat as it mixed with frantic shouts. A deep exhaustion settled in his bones as regret twisted his insides. The helplessness clawed at him, tightening its grip, and then he felt it. The piercing cold of a shadow wrapping around his ankle. Reginald's heart plummeted. He looked down to see a black form snaking up his leg, drawing him closer to its gnashing maw. He fought against the grip, summoning all his strength, the memory of Ellie's brave face dancing before him. "We won't lose you," he roared, hurling his voice into the enveloping dark. "We will face whatever it is together." A flicker of light erupted from the villagers, ignited by the shared defiance echoing Reginald's plea. One by one, they joined hands, creating a ring of humanity against the impending storm. The shadows recoiled, as if repelled by their unity. Reginald surveyed the faces surrounding him, friends, families, neighbors. They were not just villagers anymore, they were fighters. "You think this will save you?" The shadowy figure hissed, its voice grating like stone on stone. Its form twisted and morphed, dark hues swirling like a tempest. "These shadows feed on fear, on guilt. You alone cannot stand against your own truths." Connections of courage sparked brighter among the villagers. "We are stronger than our darkness," Lady Mortimer shouted, her voice like iron as she lifted her chin high. "Together, we break free from this prison." "Together," echoed Reginald, his voice soaring above the hysteria, forcing clarity into the maelstrom. He felt the warmth of Ellie's embrace, felt her spirit weaving through the hearts of everyone around him, filling them with resolve. An unexpected surge coursed through him as men and women clenched their fists tighter. Reginald looked again at the dark figure. It was still terrifying, but now it trembled, freezing under the raw power of unity. "Tell us our truths," he challenged, his heart pounding with the weight of their fears. "Make us confront what we shove into the shadows. We would rather face our demons than hide." A chilling laugh rang out, echoing off the stones. "Very well, let us unveil the curtain. Let us set the stage for the harsh and beautiful truths hidden in your hearts." And at that moment, the shadows exploded into blinding light, unveiling a world of horrors and glories, their pasts erupting into existence, memories flooding through the snapping darkness. Faces, actions, forgotten sorrows rushed back, crashing into consciousness with shocking intensity. Reginald gasped as images flickered like desperate flames, scenes of moments he wished to forget, ghostly figures of those he lost swirling in the light show of their history. The villagers clutched one another, teetering on the cusp of recognition. Could each face they saw hold pieces to the truth they desperately ignored? "What have we done?" came a whisper from the crowd. The abyss beckoned, but Reginald felt the warmth of collective resilience threading through them. "This is our moment of reckoning," he cried. "We will not turn away." The light grew unwieldy, illuminating past demons, and as truth unfolded, Reginald's heart thundered. What other truths lay ahead? Would they stand firm or crumble before the specters of their past? As the last flickers of darkness rattled the edges of their new light, the ominous question hung heavy: was the truth a liberator or a destroyer waiting to unleash chaos upon their fragile unity? In that moment of blinding illumination, the villagers gasped, their pasts laid bare in vivid shards. Truths crashed in waves, washing over them like a storm breaking. Reginald stood firm, every pulse racing against the tide of memories flooding his heart. Images danced wildly before his eyes: lost friends, broken promises, and moments forever etched in time, carrying weight like stones dragging them down. He felt despair scrape at his insides, but amid the chaos, he could sense a flicker of hope stirring. "Look around you," Reginald shouted, fighting against the despair creeping in. "We are not just shadows of our past. Together, we make a storm. We've faced tragedy, now we face truth." His voice cut through the tempest, sparking something deep within. The crowd began to murmur, gathering strength from his words. Each villager wrestled with their own ghosts, standing together in resolve, knowing the light quickly filling the void would not crumble them. "We are stronger." Lady Mortimer's voice soared above the whispers, igniting the determination crawling back into their hearts. "Let the past light our way." Bertrand stepped forward, his resolve surging. He locked eyes with Reginald, the fear and anger melting away, replaced by a fierce bond they had not known existed. For every shadow that rises, a flicker of unity burns brighter. Together, we are not defined by what we've lost, but by what we choose to become. With hearts racing, villagers grew bolder, clenching hands, sharing breaths, and drawing energy from one another to confront their darkest truths. The shadows writhed as faces of regret twisted and morphed, but those shadows fought against their unity. "You cannot escape yourselves," their dark echoes hissed, "you are defined by what you fear." Reginald could feel the edges of doubt creeping back, but he clung to that spark of hope. "We are not afraid. We will not hide. Our truths are ours to mold." He stepped forward, and each step became a testament to their shared strength. He didn't have to face his demons alone, the villagers would face them together, one heart, one spirit. "Remember why you fight," Mortimer yelled, her eyes lit with passion. "Not just for ourselves, but for every soul intertwined in our fate." With one last rally, Reginald raised his sword high, reflecting light into the hearts of those around him. "Unite!" he roared, a single word echoed again and again, reverberating like thunder. The shadows shrank back against the force of their unity, their tendrils stretching and retracting as doubt quaked and weakened. Then came Ellie, her small frame silhouetted against the brightness they conjured. "I am not afraid," she shouted again, her voice piercing through the gathering storm, raw and true. In her declaration, Reginald felt a surge within him, a rush of fierce love for children untethered by the past's weight. So one by one, every villager found their voice, standing tall against the darkness. Each truth spoken ignited a flare of clarity, illuminating their spirits. "I am not my mistakes. I have loved and lost, but I will rise. My past is not my prison." The shadows recoiled, swirling violently, torn by the magnified strength of their collective voices. Reginald felt the ground beneath shift, a tremor of ancient forces releasing its grip on them, aware that their truths were truly liberating and powerful. "Let the shadows reveal our path," Reginald commanded, his voice confident like a beacon. "We will march into the darkness, not as victims, but as warriors." With a deafening clash, the shadows erupted, morphing and dissolving, unable to withstand the light they summoned. The air shimmered, aglow from their collective bravery and acceptance. Reginald's heart soared as chains fell away and burdens lifted, leaving behind only strength, the strength born from honesty and unity. The night sky began to clear, the storm fading like a distant echo. As the last remnants of darkness dissolved, the villagers stepped forward as one. They shared laughter, triumph mingling with lingering sorrow, a reminder of the journey they had taken together. Reginald looked around, his chest tight with emotion as he met Lady Mortimer's gaze. "We did it." She smiled back, pride beaming as bright as the morning sun breaking through the clouds. "And it will not end here," she replied. "Our journey will continue, new shadows may rise, and challenges may sprout from the earth, but we will face them united." As they stood atop the battleground, together in silence, a shared resolution swelled within them, a promise to honor their collective truth in all that came next. Together, they would rewrite their narratives and shield each other from the ghosts that whispered in the dark. "Steady, brave hearts," Reginald's voice rang out, full of hope. "The dawn will rise again." And as the sun crested the horizon, the villagers stood strong, weary yet resplendent, ready to face whatever came next, arms raised high, hearts intertwined, alive with the promise of tomorrow. Now it's your turn. If you love this epic conclusion, you need to subscribe to the channel immediately so you don't miss the next incredible story. Hit that like button now to feed the algorithm and let the world know. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories because I can't wait to hear from all of you. And don't wait even one more second, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support.